Hello, I'm Grim, and welcome to this October Spooky video looking at an October Spooky game, namely Scooby-Doo Mystery Mayhem, which came out in 2004 for the PlayStation 2, the GameCube, and the Xbox Original, which is what I'm playing it on here for this review. It also came out for the Game Boy Advance in 2003, but I mean, it's the Game Boy Advance versus these comparatively powerful home consoles, so I don't really know how much that one differs. The game fits into the genre of adventure games, although perhaps only barely, which is both a blessing and a curse, because while I think this game would have been probably easy to make funner as an action-adventure game rather than just a straight-up adventure game, for instance like other video game tie-ins from the same era such as Simpsons Hit and Run and Shrek 2, I don't, on the other hand, think an action-adventure game, such as a bit of a beat-em-up, would have really suited the subject material. I just can't imagine Scooby-Doo and the rest of Mystery Inc. going around and beating up ghosts, regardless of how much funner the game would have been. And so instead, they opted to make the game sort of a mystery puzzle-solving game, which I do think was the right direction to take it, though, unfortunately, it really failed to do so for the most part. It is, you see, just overall terribly executed. To begin with, the game's gameplay is so very easy and simplistic that there's really no reason that this game needs to even be 3D, as aside from zapping ghosts, which itself is no real difficult task, everything else in the game could have easily been just a point-and-click adventure. Now, I'm not really a big fan of point-and-click adventures, which should be noted going into this review, as the fact that I don't really like the genre of course has some bias towards me playing a game that is basically in the genre, but I like point-and-click adventures even less when they are converted into a 3D game and given some of the worst controls and camera angles that I've ever seen in a video game. The simple task of navigating around this game is just entirely miserable, which is a darn shame, as you have to basically go into every corner of every level. As to progress, you have to find items that are randomly scattered about, which somewhat brings us to the mystery part of Mystery Mayhem, which is pretty much all over the shop. I mean, you're basically playing as detectives, you're playing as Scooby or Shaggy from Mystery Inc., and you're trying to solve this mystery, but there's really no solving that you, the player, actually ever does. When you find a clue, it just tells you it's a clue, and while you can go in to inspect it further, it will just give you a very vague description, such as a photograph or a receipt or a note, but it doesn't actually tell you what the receipt is for, what the photograph is of, or what the note says. And because of this, at no point during the game does it ever feel like you, the player, is actually solving a mystery. You just have to find a couple of items around the level, and then you get the final end of level cutscene where Velma explains to you why they all make sense, and we go into the next level where we rinse and repeat. And I know some of you are probably saying, but Grim, you're playing as Shaggy and Scooby, they really don't know what they're doing in the show either. They just find clues, Velma puts it together, and she does all the legwork solving the mystery. Which is true, and I suppose it makes it somewhat faithful to the game, but in that case, well, maybe we shouldn't be playing as Shaggy and Scooby, but instead as Velma, instead of the comic relief. As you get into the later levels, there does start to become some puzzle solving, which is a refreshing change, but unfortunately these puzzles range from being ridiculously easy to incredibly vague, and so whenever they pop up, you're either going to solve them in half a second, or stand there scratching your head trying to figure out what the game's actually going to allow you to do before you can even figure out what the puzzle is to begin solving it. And then you get to the trial and error sections of the game. These sections are entirely miserable. You're going to be on a minecart or riding a motorbike or running down hallways, and you're going to inevitably have to do these areas over and over again, as there's constant leaps of faith taking you down dead ends, and the only way to know there's a dead end there is to have gone down there, so you're going to find yourself having to do it over and over again. I suppose it's supposed to be some kind of memory game like matching cards, but considering how long these sections are and the constantly repetitive voice tracks, well, I would rather be playing with cards. And even the ghost capturing portion of this game, which surely shouldn't have been too hard to pull off, is entirely broken, as you can only capture ghosts when they're facing you, but the AI is so bad that they'll routinely run away from you and cower in a corner, but the level won't let you continue until all the ghosts are dead, so you're just stuck there doing nothing, waiting for a ghost to turn around, and waiting for the game to allow you to continue. But Grim, you scream out in exasperation, you're making this game sound like it's really quite bad. And it is, but I hear you go on to question, doesn't it have any redeeming qualities? And yes, I suppose if you twist my arm, I can probably maybe name a few. And so, first up, the graphics. The graphics aren't terrible, they're definitely not great for the Xbox original. I mean, compare the Spooky Mansion level from Scooby-Doo against the Spooky Mansion level from Banjo-Kazooie, and despite being a generation older, the Banjo-Kazooie one on the Nintendo 64 definitely looks better, but at least the graphics are suitably Scooby-Doo. It really does look like you're playing the cartoon. They've really nailed the characters, animation, the colours, and even the voice acting is spot on, so in that regard, they've done a very good job. There's also 5 levels, which the game refers to as episodes, that give you a pretty good range of spooky terrains. They are somewhat hit and miss, but each time I got to a new level, it was a welcome change. The first of these episodes is the Horten of Hambridge, which is basically entirely set within a library, which felt a lot like the start of Ghostbusters, and a cross between Scooby-Doo and Ghostbusters is a good thing, so big thumbs up for that one. And the next episode is Mayhem at the Movies, which I thought was a really good idea, as being at a movie studio, there's all these different sets, so you can cram in ancient Egyptian, you can cram in space and graveyard sets and medieval sets, so it really gives you a good diversity all in the one episode, even though I did have a slight feeling that maybe this is where all of the unfinished levels throughout the game were crammed in, so they didn't waste them. This one, being so diverse in its setting, has a good variety of bad guys. That said, there were occasionally bad guys on settings that didn't really make a great deal of sense. Then next up is the episode Weird Wild West, which was a complete waste of potential. The unique bad guy found within Weird Wild West is just a tornado, which I thought was really strange and quite stupid. I mean, when you think of spooky, you don't think of tornadoes, and it seems like a wasted opportunity where they could have had the bad guy minor 49er or something. And that is somewhat of an issue throughout the entire game, where I definitely think they could have used a few more villains from the original cartoon. This episode, in its defense, did have some interesting puzzle solving, though one of them I had to look up online because I really couldn't figure out what I was supposed to do, and it turned out the clue was apparently on the blackboard, which I absolutely could not read. So I don't know if it's because I'm on a newer TV or something, but I could have wandered around forever on this one and never finished the game. Then it's on to the next episode, Bad Juju in the Bayou, which was one of the most frustrating levels out there, because there were all of these swimming sections with alligators that had ridiculous hit detection and would never leave you alone. And to combine with that, there's also this annoying character you have to deal with in the level, and another one of those annoying trial and error sections. So overall, Bad Juju in the Bayou is the worst level in this game, and if I wasn't reviewing it and hadn't put so much time in it, I would have probably stopped playing at this point. The one upside to this level though is the unique bad guy, which are zombies. They were pretty good, and they were pretty suiting, so minor plus points for that, and let's move on. And as we do move on, we move straight along to the final episode, High Tech Horror, which is within a facility that looks a lot like Area 51 from Perfect Dark. Being a high-tech facility, none of the bad guys throughout the level really make a great deal of sense thematically. They do sort of make sense being there as far as the storyline goes, but I don't know, I really didn't like this level too much. And that's Scooby-Doo Mystery Mayhem. I never really played this game much back in the day, and so I really have no nostalgia for it, so my review might seem a little bit more cold than someone revisiting it with rose-tinted goggles. I think if a kid is a really big Scooby-Doo fan, they might be okay with the game, but only because they don't know any better, which by no means the game is good, and I don't think it being a kid's game is ever an excuse to make a bad game. I really don't suggest this game. In reflection, the only thing I really enjoyed about it were the cutscenes, and that was because they were so much like the cartoon, and so in reality, you might as well just watch the cartoon or find the cutscenes on YouTube. And so in closing, when it comes to whether or not I suggest Scooby-Doo Mystery Mayhem, I Scooby-don't. And with that pun out of the way, thanks for watching, and until next time, I have been and still am Grim Grindle. If you'd like to follow me on social media, a link to my Twitter is in the description below, and if you'd like to join the Channel Grim and Grin Discord, a link to that is also available. And of course, this is the month of October, where the spooky season is running wild, so if you would like more Halloween content, then stick around for that.